overview about what we're doing at the MIT Climate CoLab. And then I'm actually going to come at it not necessarily from an environmental point of view, but from a collective intelligence point of view. And I think you'll find it really interesting. I mean, I don't have to convince you all that climate change is a really big issue, arguably the largest issue that we're dealing with as a human society right now. So I'm not even going to go there or try that, but really speak at it from a collective intelligence angle and even what collective intelligence means. And then I'm going to open it to Q&A, and we can just have a conversation. And then I love Tufts. I had an amazing time here. I'm so thankful for my education, taking great courses like with Rusty Russell back there not too long ago, who's also been involved in the Climate CoLab, and then working with Tina and Sarah Hammond-Crichton before her, and Don Quirk, if any of you know those people, and lots of other people here, Julian Adjaman at UEP, and many others. So I'm so happy and would be thrilled to talk about my either experience at Tufts and looking back at Tufts and what's kind of happened since then. I've taken a very non-conventional route after leaving Tufts. I did lots of traveling and lots of like almost not having a job for a long time, and then doing contract work, and then trying to start my own business and not doing that, and then working for a large nonprofit, and then moving to MIT. So I've done lots of different things all over the place. So if anybody has a concern like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, or am I doing the right thing, or will it all turn out, I am so happy to talk about all of those things, because I definitely experienced every little bit of that. Okay, so let's just do it. So, but for starting off, I'm going to talk about the Climate CoLab. So the Climate CoLab is a research project, and it's a research project out of the MIT Center for Collective Intelligence, which sounds very MIT, and it operates mainly out of the Sloan Business School, though it is a collaboration with different departments and centers on campus. So the Climate CoLab is all about harnessing the collective intelligence of people from all around the world to address climate change. Okay, so what does that mean? So I want you to think and just imagine for a moment, really, what if the entire world could work together to problem solve some of our most complex social challenges? Like, really? What if you could work with people in Africa, could work with people in China, could work with people in Sweden, and there's actually this global problem-solving collaboration that's happening, and it's actually effective? You know, what would it look like? And how would it be organized? And what would the role of experts be? And what would the role of non-experts be? And could we, if we were actually able to do this in some way, could we actually produce better results in solving and addressing some of these challenges than we've ever been able to do before? So those are some of the questions that we're looking at addressing and some of our research prompts at the Center for Collective Intelligence. So you're all probably familiar with this logo. So Wikipedia, it's the world's largest online encyclopedia, and it was formed from contributions from over 80,000 unique editors. And in 2012, Wikipedia had 60 times the number of English articles than the Encyclopedia Britannica did. And in an independent study that was done by Nature magazine in 2005, very well known and probably too well cited, it did an analysis to test the accuracy and compare the accuracy between Wikipedia and the Encyclopedia Britannica. And it did find that the Encyclopedia Britannica was more accurate, but not that much more, just a little bit more. And so it wasn't necessarily a significant difference. So very interesting. So there are many other examples of this kind of crowdsourcing collective intelligence effort. Many of them, some of them, only a few of them are on here. So just to give you an example, Linux, which is that little, the logo's little penguin down there, invites a global community of software engineers to build its operating system. And so instead of using, you know, a Windows operating system or a Mac operating system, you could use a Linux operating system. And has anyone here heard of Linux before? Yeah, it's pretty well known. What's maybe not well known about it is that it actually is the operating system that powers 90% of the world's fastest supercomputers and the New York Stock Exchange. So that was developed by this kind of organized collective intelligence crowdsourcing effort. And then also there's this, this initiative called Fold It, which it created a game that as thousands of people play it, it actually advances science research. So just to give you an example, In just 10 days, players from around the world helped produce an accurate model of a key protein found in an HIV-like virus, solving a problem that actually had stumped scientists for 15 years. And that would happen in 10 days. So harnessing this kind of collective intelligence has been done on these levels, but it's also been done on the citywide level as well. Is anyone familiar with Plan NYC? If you took Kent Portney's class, you're definitely familiar with it. So Plan NYC was an initiative run by Mayor Bloomberg to look at and brainstorm ways that the city of New York could become the greenest city in the world by 2050, or was it 2030? I think it was actually 2030. Yeah, by 2030. So ideas were generated by experts and by staff members of the city, but then also you could submit ideas as a resident of New York City, and then all those were pooled together, and you could vote. Residents of the city could vote about which ones they liked the best. And so here are some of the results, which is really interesting. So you can see that on this side right here are the seed ideas, so from the experts and from the staff members, and here are the uploaded ideas from the community. And then here's how they ranked. The ranking is actually up there. And so you can see that of the expert ideas, most of them were ranked better than most of the ones that were uploaded. So a lot of the ones from the uploaded were, just as good or kind of as good and not as good as the ones that were seeded from the experts and the staff members. But many of them were just as good, and a few of them were actually ranked way, way higher than the ones submitted from the experts and from the staff. And so that's the 2% of ideas that came from the crowd that were better than the ones from the experts. And so we're looking at, well, how do we get that 2%? And also, climate change needs this 2%. And so that's what we're looking to do with the Center for Collective Intelligence. So, so the idea is promising that this kind of large-scale problem solving could actually work. So we want to actually test it. So I want to introduce to you the Climate CoLab. So the Climate CoLab is an online platform where people from all around the world can work together to develop and select proposals on how to address global climate change. So we organize our activity through a series of contests, and anyone can submit, comment on, collaborate on, and vote for the proposals that are submitted onto our platform. And so we have a few different kinds of contests that we talk about. I'll give an overview of the process here, and then I'm happy to go into detail about any of these during the Q&A. So we have a few different kinds of contests. As I mentioned, we have some that focus just on specific sectors. So sectors like energy generation, electricity supply, and on transportation, building efficiency, industrial efficiency. How do you engage the public? How do you communicate about climate change? And we also have contests that we run in collaboration with different organizations. For example, we ran a contest with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration last year about how do you communicate to coastal cities their risk or resilience to climate change. And we also are going to be launching a new set of contests this year that focus on specific regions. And so it allows people to actually contribute ideas that can happen on a regional or national level, and also even creating and commenting on climate action plans that people are either creating or have already been out there. So imagine you could actually work on Obama's climate action plan on the site. And you could say, well, this is really good. You could assess the carbon impact and the climate impact of that proposal. And then you could say, well, I want to amend it and make changes, so you could actually do that on the site and then test and see what the climate impact of that proposal would be. So that's a little bit about what we do, or a little bit about the kinds of contests that we have here. And so to date, we have over 1,000 proposals and over 30,000 members that are registered onto the site. And it's a free membership. Anyone can join. You just either log in through social media or enter in your email address, and you can sign up. And so in addition to the 30,000 members, over 30,000 members that we have, we also have over 200 experts and semi-experts in the field of climate change or related fields. And so the people who make up our community we do have this very strong community of climate experts, but we also have lots of students and researchers. We have professionals, young professionals, and people who are working in startups and working in NGOs and working in government. So we really have a very wide array of people that are engaged in the Climate CoLab. When we started in 2009, it was mainly researchers and students, but in the past couple of years, we really have a very diverse audience that are engaged on the site. So this is how our process works. So first, there's the proposal creation phase. So we have these contests, and we open contests, and we run about, anywhere from 15 to this year, maybe more like 30 or more contests at a time. And the reason why we do that is because we're not focusing just on necessarily one element of climate change. We're looking at the big picture. So on our platform, we're actually seeing, can we use collective intelligence to look at the wide array of all that can be done around climate change? So there are a lot of different organizations out there that are running contests on things that are very specific, which is incredibly valuable and very important. But we're really looking at, can we tackle the entire issue of climate change in all of its complexity through the Climate CoLab? So we have this wide array of contests that we run on the site simultaneously. And so there's a proposal creation phase. People submit their work. They can work on it over time. Anything that anyone submits onto the site is transparent. So just like, just like Wikipedia, when you submit something, it's immediately available. And then you can work on it over time until the contest end period. And some of the contests actually have climate models associated with them. So you assess your carbon impacts or sometimes just climate impacts associated with your proposal. And then you can actually calculate the impact that it would have on sea level rise, on GDP, and on temperature and other things as well. So you really get a sense of, okay, how impactful is your proposal really in reality. Then there's a finalist selection period where the judges give feedback and review proposals and give feedback. And then there's a chance for people to revise their proposals. And there's a judging and voting process. So the judges choose winners, and then there's a popular choice selection component to it as well. And then the winners are awarded, and then we allow them to present to enablers or implementers, people who could help move these ideas forward. So what that has looked like in the past few years. So in 2012, creators of the winning ideas presented in briefings in front of the UN in New York and in front of Congress, representatives from Congress in Washington. And then last year, we invited the winners to discuss their ideas with potential implementers at a conference. This is the last 2 years we've done this, actually, at the Crowds and Climate Conference. Did anybody attend this conference here over the last 2 years? I know Rusty came for part of it, but all right. So it's a conference that we've been running for the past couple of years at MIT. We invite all the winners to come down, and then we pair them up with key people who can really help advance their work. And so that's what the conference has looked like for the past couple of years. And so let me give you an example of some of the contests that we've run and some of the results that we've gotten for some of the winners that have emerged. So I mentioned this contest already that we ran with NOAA. And so the winning proposal from this one was a solutions platform that uses radio and two-way text messaging to communicate to coastal communities. This one specifically was in Tanzania, but it could be scaled up to apply to other communities as well, that may be not connected by the internet. They may be very remote. They may be very spread out. So it's hard to reach. It's hard to have that kind of community and that knowledge exchange. And so in areas where radio is still the predominant use of a form of communication, this was a really effective tool. We also ran a contest on a U.S. carbon price. So how could we actually effectively have a U.S. price on carbon in the United States? And so we were seeking policy initiatives, but then also mobilization initiatives. So how do we get the right people to buy into this, or how do we shift the public or the political atmosphere to make a carbon price possible? So we're seeking all these kinds of things. So we collaborated with 2 former representatives, one Republican and one Democrat, and George Shultz, who's a former Secretary of State under Reagan. And so they were the advisors and judges on this contest, along with some other people. And we had 2 really interesting proposals. One was a bipartisan friendly carbon tax that advocated for pro-growth and protecting the poor, but then also reducing less efficient policies at the same time. So kind of a little bit of both sides of the platform. And then we also had a proposal which was really interesting. It was called Snowcaps. And it used digital currencies and the idea of regulation by reputation. So like Etsy and Amazon and eBay and Yelp and things like that, people really want a good, does anybody have one of those accounts, like an Etsy account or something? Or like Amazon, yeah. So like if someone gives you a bad rating, that's really bad, right? Because people see that rating, they see the negative comments, and then they might not want to use your product or service. So that's called regulation by reputation. And that's emerging more and more with all these different kind of crowdsourcing efforts. And so it's using that kind of model to actually impose a non-political cap and trade now. So it's all based on digital currency as opposed to anything that has to be approved by Congress. So that's another interesting proposal that we got. We also ran a contest on youth action, so how youth can be leaders in climate change. So yes, you can raise money and support nonprofits and clean up waterways, but really, how can youth be key leaders in this movement? Because this is going to be the time that affects them the most, right? So, so we worked with two former heads of state. Actually, you probably are familiar with the last name Brundtland from the Brundtland Commission. I can't imagine that you're in environmental studies and haven't at least heard of that, but if you haven't, that's okay. Come ask me afterwards. But anyway, the Brundtland Commission was the first time that sustainable development was really defined at an international level, and that was commissioned by Gro Harlem Brundtland, who was the Prime Minister of Norway at the time. And so we worked with her and Mary Robinson, who's a former president of Ireland, and to run a contest on how youth could actually be leaders in addressing climate change. And so this really neat proposal was selected as the winner, called Climate Change is Elementary, which has students actually catalyze fundraisers for their school, which also allows discounts for their families. So while they're raising money to make their communities and their school green, they also support families who are looking for those initiatives as well. So these are different organizations that we've worked with over the past few years. We're actually running a contest right now with the city of Cambridge on how to minimize the heat island effect in the city of Cambridge. And we are in conversation with the city of Somerville as well as running a contest with them. So you can expect that to come out next few months, and we hope that you participate in that. So here are some people that have been involved from Tufts. And so one of them is in the room right now. So Rusty was one of our implementers and one of our advisors for our conference last November. And so Bill Mumal, you may know him from the Fletcher School. He's not there anymore, correct? He's retired. Yeah. He's at G-Day. Okay, great. So he was one of the early collaborators with us on this project as well, and one of our advisors. And then Lauren Keller served as, Kim Portney also joined us last year, and then Lauren Keller was over at the Fletcher School, and she worked with us as a Climate CoLab fellow. So let's go back. So this list is kind of small. So I would like to have conversations with anyone who's interested in being involved with the Climate CoLab. These aren't the number of members. These are people that are actually work with us either as fellows or as advisors. So, and I can talk a little bit more if anyone's interested about what being a fellow or advisor means. So this list is smaller than I would like it to be, especially being a Tufts alum. So I'm always looking for more people who are, mainly we work with graduate students for our fellows to become fellows for the Climate CoLab. And professors for the advisors. So that is an overview of what we're up to at the Climate CoLab. So that's what I got in terms of a formal presentation, but I'd love to just have kind of maybe an informal conversation now or answer any questions that you may have about either this work, the work of collective intelligence, the work we're doing at the Climate CoLab, or about my experience with Tufts and anything else. Okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Laur. That's really interesting. Yeah, even worse is that the four people you showed up there, three of them are no longer essentially here.
Yeah.
Tell me, how do you evaluate these incredible proposals? Like crowdsourcing is great on budget, but
yeah.
Is the wisdom of the crowds necessarily so up on sort of policy constraints and issues like that? Who vets it for that, and who are the people who ultimately judge these proposals? Aren't they experts? And so don't the experts get the last word anyway? Yeah. I'm not trying to.
No, those are great questions, and those are questions that we're tackling with as a project as well. But to answer that, so we have a few. Oh, yeah, sure. So the question was about the judging process. So how do the proposals get evaluated? And then if there is a judging process, then don't the judges get to decide in the end anyway? So So what's the crowdsourcing component of that? So there are a few different rounds of judging that we do. So what we found generally is that, as you can imagine, and this is consistent, what I'm about to say is consistent with a lot of crowdsourcing efforts, you get a very large pool of proposals, and then there's a portion of those that are either incomplete or off topic or irrelevant. So that's maybe about 30% that are not immediately relevant or appropriate for the initiative that you're trying to do. And so you have this 70% that you're really working with. So that's one of the ways our fellows get involved. So our fellows are like our semi-experts. They have deep understanding and deep knowledge in the field, and they actually review the proposals and screen them, and they say, okay, which ones are relevant and which ones are not relevant given our contest prompt, right? So there's that process that happens first. And then the judges review the proposals and provide comments and feedback. And we try to keep that, we try not to eliminate too many people in that round because we want people to have the opportunity to revise their work and say, okay, well, if you didn't address this challenge or this concern that the judges have, or they think your data is incorrect, or can you please substantiate this or whatever, then it gives them an opportunity to do that. And then there is a second round of judging to select finalists. So I guess in that sense, yes, the role of experts is really important. A lot of this work is technical, it's detailed, it's really difficult, it's complicated, has a lot of nuances. So there is certainly a very strong role that experts play in making sure that these ideas are grounded in science or grounded in reality, or that they could potentially be possible. But then after that screening has happened, judging has happened, there are what we call finalists. So those remaining proposals are what we call finalists. And the finalists, there is one or sometimes multiple winners that are selected as a judge, or sorry, as a judge's choice winner. But then also we get that there are proposals that may be of more interest to a broader set of people. So we have this public voting process where anyone can come onto the site, and if you're a member, you can vote for the proposal that you want to see actually move forward. So that's where we incorporate the crowd into that process. Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys have generated a lot of great ideas, but I'd love to know what happens then after the judging process and like once they've been presented to the implementers.
Yeah.
They have gone on actually acted what the impact is.
Yeah, that's a really excellent question. And given that we're a young project, I think a lot of our success is to be seen. We do have some success stories that I'll share with you, but it's still in development. I mean, this stuff is not easy to do. I mean, think about how many years it's taken to, get countries to agree to any kind of international agreement. But I'll share with you some of the success stories, individual success stories that we've had from our winners. But we're, at the same time, let me say, is that we're developing that out more now. We're realizing that because these issues are really complicated and they are complex, there is a good amount of work that needs to happen that once you have these winning ideas to actually have them have an impact in the world. So first of all, I can say that we had a grand prize winner from 2 years ago, and it was a team from the University of Calgary, a research team, and they used aerial infrared photography to actually to map entire cities, entire regions, to see where the heat loss was of buildings, and they put all that information on a Google Maps overlay. So you could go on and you could say, okay, here's the heat loss in my home. Here's how I compare to people in my neighborhood, and get access and tools and resources, which could have a really big impact especially on a community-wide level. And so because of their involvement with the Climate CoLab, originally they were working on a scale of about 30 cities of 30,000, populations of 30,000. But in the process of working on their proposal on the Climate CoLab, they thought, well, why can't we just go bigger? And the neat thing, again, about the Climate CoLab is that people can write comments, submit their ideas. So if you have an idea up there, you're talking to people from all over the world who are interested in your proposal about how to move it forward. And so they said, okay, well, let's expand this up. What about cities of 1 million? What about even bigger than that? So now they're actually in conversations because of that development, and also all the media attention and press and everything they've gotten out of winning the contest. They're actually in contact with the province of Alberta, which is the province in Canada that Calgary is in, about expanding this on a provincial-wide level. So that's one story we're really excited about, and we can't wait to hear more of how that goes. So we have other stories that are kind of like on that level. As you can imagine, with such a wide variety and a diverse set of proposals, it's not like we can all push them through the same process. It doesn't work like that, right? Some of them are looking for funding, some are looking for grant funding, some are looking for investors, some are looking to talk with politicians. It's a very wide array of things. So right now we're in the process of, okay, how can we create that program to connect them to the right people? But something that we're really excited about, which may not be quite as tangible, is just the incredible response that this platform has gotten and the interest that we've had from, the World Bank and different UN groups and different universities and organizations and heads of state and former heads of state and everything else. That's really exciting. And so we're like, okay, we're really providing a service here. We're providing a platform where people can submit ideas, work together, can move some things forward. And I mean, our community has been doubling or tripling over the past few years. And so that in itself is like an education and connection tool and an optimistic force when dealing with climate change is something that we're really excited about. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
How do you make the Climate CoLab
Yeah. Well, being associated with MIT really helps. The brand definitely helps. Oh, yes, thank you. So the question, thanks. Okay, great. So the question I was just asked is how do you spread the word? How do you do outreach? How do you get people to pay attention to this project? And I got to say that the MIT brand helps a lot. So not only are we a project that's associated with MIT, but we also have the kinds of connections that MIT allows. So we have great connections within the different faculty as well. So, a Tufts project would have something similar. Tufts is a really great brand around the world and has great professors and great resources and connections, especially involved in some environmental initiatives with TIE and G-Day and everything else that's happening here, and UEP, some great connections there. So that's one thing. But then also, when we organize our contests, we have contest teams. And some of the people on the contest teams, I mentioned the role of fellow. They're really the leaders on each contest. And so they're really taking the initiatives of communicating, getting the word out. And they're involved in their field, right? They're selected for that contest for a reason. So they're doing a lot of outreach, a lot of research. We put a lot of investment in social media as well. And I was never really a social media person. I mean, like I had a Facebook account when I got my Tufts email address back in high school many years ago, when that's the only way that you could sign up for Facebook. So I didn't really get the value of it when I originally joined. But we have 7,000 likes on Facebook and over 17,000 followers on Twitter. And just being active in that and having a positive message and offering a way for people to contribute and do something about this really complicated issue has been a great rallying opportunity. So I can talk to you more about some of the specifics, but so basically overall, those kind of high-level connections are really helpful, and that brand is really helpful. And then also working with a very wide group of people who have interest and connections within each of those fields. That's really how we've been able to do that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so the question was about where proposals come from, Western developed countries versus non-Western, non-developed countries. So 60% of the people on the Climate CoLab are from outside of the US. And of our 34 winners last year, 17 of them, out of the 34 winners last year, they were represented 17 different countries. So we're very international. I was just calculating the number of winners from India. I think we had about 8 winners from India over the past couple of years, maybe even a little more than that. And then in terms of finalists or proposals, it's way, way, way more than that. So while I don't have the specific numbers for you right now, we do get really great representation from India specifically and from China. We've gotten, one of our winners was from Tanzania, and we had winners from Kenya and South Africa, that's, not quite the same community that you're talking about. So we do have representation from those areas, definitely. But, one of the things, the Climate CoLab is widely accessible. It's free. Anyone can access it. as long as you have an internet connection, right? So there is a caveat there. You're doing great.
The idea of outsourcing sort of undermines that kind of old-time kind of Western approach of sort of competition and single people getting credit for things.
Yeah.
I don't want to play that up. That's bad. But at the same time, it's still sort of a motivating force. And you speak in terms of contests, and presumably there are winners, and there's some recognition for that.
Yeah.
Is there any? I'm not saying there is definitely a contradiction there. I mean, it could be a synthesis we're looking at, and I think that's what we are. But I was just picking up on sort of crowdsourcing, sort of like you mentioned the television, like nobody really invented it, just kind of happened. Or the internet, except for Laur, I guess he invented it, but otherwise, something like that. And yet at the same time, having sort of places where people can vie for recognition and fame and fortune is at least in some circles seen as a benefit.
Yeah.
You don't need conservative or Republican
No, but that's a great point, and that comes up a lot, actually, in the questions that people have about a platform and about our strategy, and then even us and how we communicate what the Climate CoLab is about is the balance between collaboration and competition. And so you're exactly right. You're dead on. We run contests for a reason. We didn't structure it like Wikipedia for a reason. There's a motivating factor, and there's a deadline involved, right? And there's also an evaluation process, which is very important, especially in the beginning, and while we're getting all these different kinds of proposals from all over the place. So we do need that kind of, that's why we selected the structure of a contest. But then also we have this different structure where people can collaborate. And then so if you collaborate, but you're submitting into a contest, then how do you assign winners, or is there a tension there? And I would say that sometimes there's a tension, but usually it's kind of like this nice balance that happens. And I was very concerned about it in the past couple of years. Is this really working? And do we need to pick one or the other? And we actually found that it actually is working. And one of the reasons I think supports this is because we did a survey of our members. And the main reason that people participate on the Climate CoLab is, what do you think? What do you think the main reason is? To have a voice, yeah. And it's one step even beyond that. Contribution, that's the main reason. People want to contribute. People want to make a difference. People want to be involved in something. And that's the main reason why people participate in the Climate CoLab. And the second main reason is because they want to move their projects forward. They want to get recognition. They want to get connections. They want to get whatever. So while, yes, of course, they want to win, but they want to win because of the opportunities that it allows for them to have bragging rights or the media attention. The money actually isn't a huge motivator. I didn't even mention the money. So we have a $10,000 grand prize that we award, but we just award one grand prize. So it's not, every winner doesn't even get money. So that makes sense that it's not a motivating factor because we don't have a lot of money to offer, so people are not going to be motivated by something that we don't have. But anyway, but consistently we hear from our winners that the best part, one of the best parts of the process for them was actually getting the feedback from the judges, from the fellows, from the people who are just interested and wanted to contribute in some way, just they had ideas or things like that. So, so it is, I would say, a tension rather than a contradiction, but it seems to be pretty healthy and working. We haven't found any, I mean, there are always extreme cases where, a collaboration happens and then is unwanted later on in the process, but that happens with any kind of project. But we've seen that it's because it is an optimistic project and because we're all working towards something that's bigger, that works. Yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah, you just have one winner contest.
Not always. So we have, usually what we have is a judges, how we structure it, there's a judge's choice winner and a popular choice winner. Sometimes there's a popular choice winner, but no judge's choice winner. Sometimes there's a judge's choice winner and a special commendation. So there's a couple different combinations, but.
Because they can have an opportunity to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So just for the people online, he was saying that if there are multiple winners, they can broadcast their win across their country and then have more opportunity to receive connections or funding or things like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great question. So we do have a judges committee select the grand prize. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
The second question is, let's just say I have a proposal on a topic that you put out there. What kind of traffic might I expect in terms of that? What is the typical energy out there for a particular proposal that where I think, wow, people are really interested in this. It motivates me to keep moving it forward because I'm getting that kind of feedback.
Yeah, so two great questions. So the first one is that, so we are funded by the National Science Foundation, so we have an NSF grant, and that's running the project essentially right now. We also do get some funding from so we have some corporate sponsors with the Center for Collective Intelligence and some foundational sponsors, so that supports the project as well. Right now, we don't, so with the organizations that we work with, we don't have a fee for service. It's just we're still kind of testing. We're in the testing phases of that, so it's just a non-monetary collaboration right now. So in terms of a long-term business plan, we currently are seeking foundation funding. I mean, that's the primary funding that we're looking for. Though when we are working with organizations, when we have a place where we're getting to a point now where we have a product it's verifiable. We run it for a few years, it works. So it's something that we can, when we work with organizations, there can be a different kind of relationship or collaboration then. So does that answer your question about funding? The second question was traffic. Right, traffic you'd expect as a proposal author. So cop-out answer, it varies. Sorry, but it does. So some proposals are really hot topics and get lots of traction, lots of buzz. Usually when you submit a proposal and then you start commenting on other people's proposals, they'll start looking at your proposal and commenting on you back. So, if you just put something up there and then go away, you may or may not have activity. If you say something that's particularly something. I mean, that's kind of how, so this is a tangent. So YouTube videos are viral, not because they're necessarily interesting or good. They're interesting because they are a lot of something. Either a lot really, really bad, or really, really good, or really, really funny, or very something. So if your proposal is very something, then it will, maybe not very, very bad. But anyway, it will get some kind of attention. But some people have put proposals up there that are just like a paragraph. And people just, kind of go off on it. Like they just, lots of commenting. But the one thing I want to mention to that as well, oh shoot, I had one thing that I wanted to add to that about activity. I can't remember. All right, I'll have to remember to tell you because I can't remember right now what I was going to say. So about activity on your proposal, what would you expect? Oh, yes, here it is. So for our carbon price contest, we had those two winners. The judges chose those two winners. And the more conservative proposal, I don't think I got a single vote during the popular choice competition. I don't think I got a single vote and maybe had a few comments on it. So just because you're not seen by the public as being something that, even though you're not popular, I guess, among the public, doesn't mean that it's not a good idea that could really go places. Yeah.
I've been involved in a contest like this, different, but like this is that it had crowdsourcing and then they had a popular vote. And we found that after a couple of years running it, that it was mostly people campaigning. And that was kind of good because it means that they're getting the word out, and kind of disturbing because they were just marshaling the resources they already had.
Yeah.
So those who started with those resources had campaigning power. had a big email list already, that you leverage that list.
Yeah.
Is that a concern at all? Is there a way to move beyond that and make sure it's not just getting your friends? Maybe in some senses that's what you want.
Yeah.
But in some other senses, it's something you don't want.
Yeah, so the question was about the public voting period. Is it just a popularity contest? If you already have the networks, then you're just going to leverage those networks to vote for your proposal. So I do think about that. I think about that a lot, actually. And there are a few different thoughts that I have about it. So one is if you have a proposal that has a certain amount of interest or connections or interest already, then sure, go ahead and leverage that interest to vote for your proposal. I mean, there are obviously a lot of people that are out there that are interested in your work and what you're doing, so why shouldn't they come and vote for your proposal? Does that mean that some really interesting ideas that don't have those kind of networks or resources might not rise to the top? It might. And so we know that the voting process isn't perfect. We do a lot of work to ensure that there isn't, voting that would be damaging or that would be, like people making up email addresses and stuff like that. So we're on top of that. But we could improve the voting process to make it more, to make it better in that way. And then that also adds to the marketing question that we had about how you do outreach and communication. And the winners do a lot of that, right, for the Climate CoLab because they're doing that kind of outreach. But at the same time, and this is something that's very interesting. So we have about 33,000 members, and I manage our mailing list, so the emails that go out to all of our members. And you would think then, if we have 30,000 people, and let's say a lot of those people signed up, actually a lot of people did sign up. We had about maybe 10,000 people or so sign up during the voting period last year, which was huge, right? You would think that all those people would then leave and unsubscribe from our newsletter because they're not interested in the Climate CoLab and they're just there to vote for their friend and then they're out of here. It's actually not the case. We have about 30,000 people on our mailing list. So yeah, we have unsubscribes, but not an incredible number that you would imagine it would be from people who are completely disinterested. So it's not the best metric. It's not the best gauge of it. It is something that we're thinking about, but at the same time, it's not completely out of the ballpark. So it's a really good question, though. Yeah.
I guess you guys collect some interest in what is the age
Yeah, that's a great question. Can I access the internet on this computer? Can I just go out of this, or I actually have we have our survey results on our website. So under community facts and figures, so here you go. So we have over 33,000 registered members with over 170 countries represented. So these are the age distribution. So it's it's heavy on the people in their 20s, but at the same time it's also fairly evenly distributed, and what's interesting is that 89% of our members who responded to our survey are graduates from either college or university. So really highly educated group of people that are on the Climate CoLab. And then 58% of those have also completed or are currently attending graduate school or professional school. So again, really highly educated membership. And then, so we don't have specific data on what different occupations they're in, but we do have that, a little bit less than half are employed full-time, and then 20% are students. And then we have freelance consultants and then part-time. So do we have the information about? No, we don't. We had some research. Okay, we had some research last year about the finalists and what professions they were specifically in, but we don't have it for this year, and that was when we were about 5,000 people, so it's not really relevant for right now. So does that answer your question, though?